Okay, if there's no other questions on this topic, we will move into superintendent's recommendations and reports. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Smith.
All right, thank you, Mr. Birdie. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Martin to cover the items listed under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Birding and members of the board, I have several items for you this evening under Personnel Professional. Item number 1, resignations, letters A through D. Item number 2, employment. I want to point out letter A. Jay Bauer is listed on the agenda as the new assistant principal for Central Elementary. Jay has been an outstanding teacher here at the high school for many years, and he's moving into a leadership position at Central. Also under employment, letters B through E. Letter F, home instructors for both this for the 1920 school year, including this summer, the summer of 2020. That concludes the items I have for your consideration this evening under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept those recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
I heard Mrs. O'Neill second. Any questions or comments? Just one comment I'll make is I have experience with Mr. Jay Bauer, and he's not only a really good teacher, but he's a great individual. And I look forward to seeing the influence he has over at Central Elementary. So I think that's a really good hire. Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes. Motion passes.
This time, I'd like to ask Mr. Penny to cover the items listed under Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Birding, members of the board, I have the following items for your consideration this evening under personnel support. Under item number 1, resignations, letters A through D. Under item number 2, employment, letter A. This concludes the items I have for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept those recommendations.
I'll make a motion. Second.
There you go. I heard Mrs. O'Neill made the motion and Mrs. Gundrum second. Any questions or comments? Again, I'll just make a comment. Mrs. Boswell is retiring, or at least she's resigning our district, but she has volunteered on so many activities in our district, not only as as an employee, but as a community volunteer, and I'm sure she'll still be around volunteering in the community. So I wish her well, and I know she'll be missed in the district office, but I'm quite confident that Mrs. Savage will do an excellent job because she's been at the high school for quite a long time, and I've had lots of interactions with her, and she's excellent as well. So, any comments or questions? Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes. Motion carries.